So the year is 2007. Lord of the Rings Online has just been released to the world. Good times. And as you are leveling up, you might find yourself wandering the Midgewater marshes. In the books, it was described as so. The ground now became damp, and in places boggy, and here and there they came upon pools, and wide stretches of reeds, and rushes filled with warbling of little hidden birds. They had to pick their way carefully to keep both dry-footed and on their proper course. At first they made fair progress, but as they went on, their passage became slower and more dangerous. The marshes were bewildering and treacherous, and there was no permanent trail even for the rangers to find through their shifting quagmires. But the developers of the game decided to take that quote and go even further with it, making the world of Middle-earth feel even more alive in its presentation. So the reason I made this video is because the Midgewater marshes in the game are fascinating, because the developers, whether intentional or not, gave it a presentation of a historical site. After all, we know the Northern Kingdom fell over 1,045 years ago, in 1974 of the Third Age, after being at war with Angmar for 565 years, when the war began in 1409 of the Third Age. Arnor being a kingdom that became weaker as the years went by after the death of the High King of Gondor and Arnor, Isildur, 2 years after the fall of Sauron upon the Gladden Fields. The kingdom would be left to his youngest son, Valandil, after Isildur's other sons were slain at the fields. When Valandil took the throne, there was a great period of peace in the kingdom of Arnor. However, with each new king, the kingdom would wither, compared to Gondor, which grew mighty and expanded its borders far afield. Arnor would weaken itself even further when the kingdom would be split into three, after three sons could not get along with one another, after their father King Erendur died. So it would pass that Arnor would have three different states. Rudar, the smallest of the kingdoms and the most run down of the states, was easily in reach of the Witch King's influence. Cardolan had a greater strength, but it was weak still, for it was the great burial lands of the people of Arnor, and Arthedain, the most powerful state of Arnor, for it was positioned as the heart of the kingdom, for it housed the former capital, Anuminas, before its people living there were not enough to defend it, so the capital was changed to Fornost, the great fortress of the north. But our tale leads us to the Midgewater marshes, as I have stated. So my theory believes that the area was attacked briefly after the assault upon Weathertop. I believe the Witch King gave chase, trying to stop King Arvaleg I from taking away the Palantiri from Weathertop, but in the Witch King's arrogance, he believed he had the strength to take them. Let's get an overview of the area. As you can see, the Midgewater Fort is positioned in the middle. Its high walls are built upon steep moats for defensive purposes. With the advantage of hillocks, it would make a siege difficult. Meanwhile, northwest is a smaller fortification named the Wood's Edge Ruins. Closer to the ground, while it has walls, it is unclear to see if it was connected completely to the Midgewater Fort, but it would make sense that it had some strategic advantage of being close to the Midgewater Fort. Southeast is the Goblin Hole Ruins. From observation, it has no walls or defences, so it is clear it was a small village that could have been part of the area's living quarters, whether it was for farming, settlement or not. But observing the ruin of the large hall, it could have been a church where they prayed to the Valar, or it was a town hall or courtroom where the Lord would pass judgment of current ongoing cases. Finally is a smaller ruin further to the west of Midgewater Fort. It is a small ruin called the Sunken Stones, with many pillars spread across in a straight line with a statue at the end. It is possible this was an open park or garden with a statue of the lord who oversaw the region, an area where people would meet for walks or discuss. But from observation, the Midgewater Fort was a huge fortress. In its ruined state, you can see there are lonely pillars that stand alone on top of the main castle, which shows us that in its prime, it stood high and mighty across any battlefield. We do have evidence that something big happened in the Midgewater during the wars against the Witch King. There is an altar, part of the deed finding Dunedain lore, now in the game, is stated in the deed logs. The strange altar you found appeared to be Arnorian in origin, with signs that some gathering or ritual had taken place there recently. You've heard rumours that the rangers here in the north occasionally gather for a ceremony to declare the coming of age of one of their number, where they induct the young man or woman into their ranks by way of an oath to the Old Kingdom. Now I believe this is part of the truth, that it is part of a ritual to show respect to the dead that had fallen, given that the altar is covered in white lilies, and lilies are used in funerals. So I think it is both a lesson in history and a respect to the dead that fought a brave battle against the Witch King. I believe the Witch King was repelled, underestimating the strength of the forces of Cardolan. In my head, I think he could never make a breakthrough into the fortification, which leads us into the Weather Hills. In the year 1318 of the Third Age, we can see a waterfall, a strong running river leading into the Midgewater. Now a part of me thinks this river did not exist back then. Turning his forces around to feign a retreat, I believe the Witch King recentered his attentions on the lesser fortresses located east of the Midgewater. As we can see, a high rising tower, a part of me believes there was a dam that blocked off the water supply, probably used as a natural well for farming, and supplied the fortress of Amansul and probably any area close at hand. In the siege warfare fashion, I believe the Witch King used his main forces to assault the forward fortresses, one located up the hill and one that extended across the river. Meanwhile, from the flanks, the Witch King sent 4 sappers to breach the dam, and when the dam became breached, it was here the Witch King pulled his forces away from the carnage, for it would be here that the great strength of water would bring an almighty wave that would crash down, causing devastation. From the overview map of the Midgewater, I think naturally the wave crashed forward, smashing the main part of the wall. The high rise of the moat and wall probably took most of the forward force. Meanwhile, the wave would have pushed violently left and right, flooding every field and crashing into any wall. Many people would have died that day. After all, with the walls badly damaged from the sieges, the water would crash through the gaps. Because of this, the whole area would be flooded and destroyed. We can also tell that it was a wave from the evidence of the trees of today that were pushed over and uprooted, losing branches. Because of this tragedy and flooding of the open area, the Midgewater was born, and it would be forever a place of deep hurt to the Dunedain, that even with great valiance and defiance of a great enemy, you cannot defeat guile and deception and sabotage. But what I find interesting, and why my theory of a great wave smashing the Midgewater, is that these trees that stand here are completely safe, because the fort blocks the way, and by the time the water would reach the area, it would have slowed down its force. We know that from the looks of the lowlands, it is a barren land, and looks like it is covered in sand and dirt, that not much lives there or grows there. It could be that that land was salted by the Witch King's forces out of spite for the hardship of the sieges in that region, so nothing could grow. Just how the Roman Republic, after long years of wars with Carthage, would salt the land so the empire would wither. and be reminded that it will never rise up again. It could be that because of the dam's destruction, and the destruction of the forts and strongholds surrounding Amansul, reverted back to its natural state without the proper support network of the water from the dam. I guess it's up to interpretation, but I find things like this fascinating and always want to know more. But what do you think? Should I make more videos like this? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to my channel. Until then, this is the Rising Fawn. Have a good evening and good night.